Welcome to Season 2 with the Market Mystics, where we discuss and redefine markets, wealth, and trading on Earth as it is in heaven. Join us on the journey while we consider new possibilities with special guests who might just challenge a few perspectives. Get ready to dive in deep with your hosts, Joshua and Kim.
Nailed it.
Got it.
Hey everybody, welcome back.
Welcome.
Oh, if you like my little quip at the beginning, sometimes it's the small things. I just tried to remember a key command and it worked, and here I am having my little celebration of a tiny little win.
I think sometimes that's amazing. Yesterday, I was using a trading platform that I haven't used super regularly, and I was trying to get like something to draw on a chart, and I was like, oh, what about this? And I tried it and it worked. And it was just like a simple little thing that probably means nothing to anybody else, but I was like amazed, and it saved me 3 steps of how I had been previously doing it just because I tried the escape key. And I was like, that's amazing. So sometimes key commands are clutch.
They're so clutch.
It's true.
I don't feel like I'm that much older than you. And then you say things like that's clutch, and I'm like, we are different.
We're really not that different. We're not really that different. I think I just maybe engage in a different generation than you
do. We're both millennials, but I'm like front runner in the millennial generation, and you're like solidly in it.
Right. That's true.
Right. Funny.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was clutch. So
yeah.
Let's talk about our topic today.
Yeah. Respect my generation.
All the respect. It's my generation too.
That's actually what we're going to talk about. We wanted this conversation I had with my wife a few days ago was about the topic of respect and how do you define respect? And it stemmed from like having another conversation where she realized her definition of respect and another person's definition of respect were different. And she was like, oh, like, so we just around lunch one day, she was just like, how do you define respect? Like, what does it mean to you to be respected? And I was like, that's a really good question, because it is something like, I don't know if I would say I use the word flippantly, but maybe without fully processing what it actually, how do I see it? What do I believe about it when I say it? And so Kim and I were talking about possible topics, and I was just like, well, like, what does it mean to you? Like, and so we just decided we'd record and just have a little conversation about respect and find out what it means to Kim and Josh.
And you and me.
That's right.
When you asked this question, I initially had no answer because I've never really thought about it. It's one of those terms that is simply used and it means what it means to you, and then you use it in whatever context it fits into. But when you initially asked this, I think what I kind of came to, and this may change through this conversation, we'll see. So in the beginning, it made me think, oh, respect is kind of, to me, it's like an honor for something, and it is like a resolved honor. So it's like no longer, I don't question it. It's like restful. It is like solid. It's established. Kind of. Does that make sense? I don't know that is actually the same kind of definition anyone else would have for it. What do you define it as?
Well, so I realized before we recorded, I also Googled like what does the dictionary say the definition is. And what's interesting is it popped up a picture of the like Arlington Cemetery. and it said, "Please be silent and respectful." And that made me realize, oh, when I was thinking about respect, it was purely between human to human.
Hmm.
My like what I would have previously told you the definition was. But here's a definition of like being respectful of your environment, and that is different than what I would say between human to human. So I'll just start from human to human because that's where the conversation started. I think in my mind it boils down to trust.
Hmm.
And this was something that Bree had said, and I was like, so I started processing it, and I was like, yeah, like I think I agree with that. And and so really it was like, if I respect you, what I'm saying at my core is I trust the decisions you'll make, even if it's not what I would choose. And so it's like, yeah, I don't know if like submitting to that person's the right word, but like if I respect you as a leader, if I respect you as a spouse, a business partner, a parent, whatever it is, it's, to me, there's an aspect of trust that goes along with that, in saying that, okay, I respect you, I respect that decision, whether or not I agree with it or not. And ultimately, I think in order to respect someone, you have to trust them. And I think that a lot of times that's where you get people who don't respect authority have trauma with authority, where authority wasn't trustworthy, where
Hmm.
authority did not make the best decision for them, did not take care of them, and now they don't respect authority because they can't trust authority. And so that's kind of where, at least that, the human to human aspect of it went in my conversation and my thought process. And so I don't know, do you have thoughts on that?
I mean, I didn't even think about trust, but I think you're right. I mean,
Mm,
that wasn't a word that came to my mind, but I also thought about it fairly quickly. Um, but I do think that's core in respect as well. Um, and I also looked up definitions. We must use a different search engine because I didn't get anything about Arlington Cemetery or any pictures or anything. Um, and from, let me see, where is this? I think this is from the Oxford Dictionary.
mm,
Respect is defined as a noun, a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements.
mm,
Second definition is due regard for the feelings, wishes, rights, or traditions of others.
mm,
And I only have one bone to pick with this. I don't I don't often associate respect with feelings,
mm.
but both definitions
Almost in um like, I don't know the word I'm trying to think of, like almost regardless of your feelings.
kind of regardless of your feelings. Yes, I
Yeah.
would agree with that. Respect to me is not something that is tied to emotions.
Mm,
It's tied more to I'm gonna get heat for this, to stability.
mm,
Um, for uh the record, I don't tend to be a like big feeler. That doesn't come naturally for me. But I do think feelings and emotions have their place. Um, but I just don't associate respect with feelings. Isn't that
yeah.
interesting? But the dictionary does.
Yeah. Because to me, the feeling part of it has a little bit more to do with honor
Mm.
than respect.
That's it. But then
Like,
personally, I defined
yeah.
uh respect as honor.
Mm,
Isn't that interesting?
yeah. That is interesting.
But explain that. Okay, so explain that.
I think just in my mind, when I'm thinking about like honor, it feels more like a place in my heart, and respect feels more like a place in my mind.
Hmm,
Just when I personally say the two words.
that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I kind of find it a bit fascinating that we can have a word like this and it can mean something so differently to each
Mhm.
person. And I think I might be full of bones to pick today. Here's my other beef. Okay. It is common in Christian circles that when you get married, you get referred to a certain book that
Uh-huh.
says all men need respect and all women need love,
Mhm.
which I don't think is inaccurate on the surface. But because, like I said, I don't naturally tend toward being pretty emotional, um, I tend to value respect more than I respect or more than I want
Value love.
value love. And I do value love, but it's at a different level. It's like agape love and not like eros love.
Mm.
And but I need to first be respected and then the love give low, which is not ideal for my walk either. But if I'm talking naturally,
Mhm.
and that's kind of what this book is talking about, is naturally women need love, not respect, and men need respect, not love. And so there's my other bone to pick because I think that in relationships, people are going to need both.
Mm.
And I don't know that we can like blanket characterize, oh, this group of people needs this and this group of people need this.
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think about that? You like all my complaints today?
I I wonder if part of that goes to, I think that every person is created with some masculine aspects and some feminine aspects. And maybe as a blanket statement, it's true that the masculine needs respect and the feminine needs love. I don't know. I really don't. But it like depending on which part of those aspects has more prominence in your life, like I wonder if that could change the ratio. But I do, like, I agree. I think each person needs both.
Mm.
Um, but I do think even within that definition, even within that book, respect would be to some regard looked as trust. Like the like if you're gonna say, "Oh, I respect my husband," like that would be saying, "I respect his ability to make decisions for my life." Um, and that's a deep place of trust because that's extraordinarily vulnerable. Um, and I think that um, yeah, that's a tricky spot. And but I believe personally that you can't really have love without vulnerability. And
Mm.
so like, these places that feel pretty weighty and scary, like I think that there's some realness in being in that, fully in that, willing to just be pulverized by the other person, and that's super uncomfortable.
It is super uncomfortable. I mean, that is kind of, I mean, we're shifting gears a little bit.
Yeah.
We get down to it. Vulnerability is like opening yourself up with the full openness to be pulverized if that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it as like putting your heart in a blender and then giving it to the other person. Like, and honestly, there's going to be times where they push the pulse button. Like,
Just hope it's not plugged in. Just kidding.
but I just mean like in every relationship, even a healthy relationship, there's going to be times where you feel hurt, but do you have the capacity to stay in the blender, to stay in the position of vulnerability to be open with that other person?
Mhm.
Like, I think that that's a big piece of it, and I mean, to bring it a little bit back, I think that has to do with respect. Like, if I truly respect you, like I will allow there to be opportunities where I felt hurt and still return to that place,
Hmm.
I think.
It's interesting. You think that's respect. I think that lends itself more toward trust and not exactly respect.
Maybe
Just in my
so.
own brain, I'm not even saying
Yeah,
wrong, but in my mind, I think like giving that blender to someone is not necessarily respect, it's mega trust.
right. It is mega trust. But
And
I feel
yeah,
like it's kind of a different way of saying a similar thing.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
And maybe it's just maybe it's a different term based on where you're at on a sliding scale. Like,
that's true. And it probably, I think the reason it may be different for so many people is because of life experience.
mm,
I had a long time in corporate America, and respect in the workplace means something different than respect with your parents or even
yeah,
respect in a marriage or
that's true.
respect at church. I mean, like it kind of takes on a different form in different scenarios,
Mhm.
but typically the one that has been the most impactful for you is probably what's going to stick out the most,
Right.
right?
Mm.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too.
Yeah, I do think respect is a sliding scale in definition based on situation. Because like I had never thought about the cemetery and the use of that word in a cemetery. Like I just wouldn't have been where my mind went with it.
It's
But
almost like reverence there,
hmm,
right?
yeah, right. Yeah. Not to be loud, um not to, disturb the property, like, and I suppose that is a form of respect, like, yeah, it's just that's an interesting thing, like, I've just never really thought about using that word in that context, but I think that it's it's fun to just expand your thinking of, like, the possibility of it.
For sure. I was just looking up uh the definition of reverence, and it is a gesture indicative of respect, which I find to be interesting, that to regard or treat with deep respect, that that word is the definition of reverence.
Mm. In the one I'm looking at, um, the second definition says, "To avoid interfering or intruding upon," which that to me feels way more like the cemetery realm. Like
Mhm.
you are not interfering, you're not intruding. The third definition is to avoid violating. Like that's like I feel like those ones are a bit more within that realm. I was like, oh, like that's really fascinating.
Okay, that one, can we just pick at that one for a little bit? To
Yeah,
avoid disturbing,
violating. Oh yeah,
violating.
yeah.
Like in our society right now, we're in this time, and it's like in at least America and on social media, it's like Pride Month. So this is like where all of the LGBTQ stuff is being like celebrated this month.
Hmm.
And I've seen so much like pushback from believers who it is like they're kind of trying to be loving, but also really like push back about this. And I kind of have a different stance on it in that I'm going to respect you to be you. And I feel like not disturbing whatever anyone is wanting to celebrate right now. And it's not a passive thing. I'm really trying to give people space to be who they are and figure things out for themselves.
Yeah.
You
Which
know
is
what
a form of respect, and which is also a
Right.
form of trust. Like you're saying, I trust you and I trust the universe to help you figure out your life.
I mean, that's kind of where it is. If we dig a little bit deeper, I feel like just because I know where I've come from and the process that I've gone through and how messy it's been and how like difficult some aspects of it, like even just the most basic faith, I had to like make a practice for years to decide to have faith until it became like innate, right? And I can't like sit and look at somebody else who has one thing or another that may be good or bad. And I'm not even here to judge that, by the way. I'm over the like good and bad stuff. But I know that if the Father can like work with me and all of my junk and my pushback, and I mean, you just heard me today. I'm like, I have a beef with the dictionary, right? Like sometimes I have some rebellious stuff in me and he's dealt with me. So why would he not like have other people on different paths? And who am I to say you're on the wrong one? I don't know. I just have a real hard time with that. Like, can he not work with people in any situation?
I mean, I tend to think yes, and I just remember somebody um, saying, "Do you believe um, the love of the Father is transformational or not?" And it's, do I trust, do I respect God to take care of it? Yes, play my part. Yes, deal with my stuff. But do I respect God enough to let him handle you differently than he handles me?
For real.
Or to let you have your own journey with him? Like,
I mean, that's kind of exactly where I am with this. And if we talk about love and respect, like I I respect him enough to know that he has his own process with each individual. I respect you enough to believe that you are on your own journey and working through whatever you're working through. And I love you enough to like not make it circumstantial.
right.
Right.
Mm,
So I don't know. I have a hard time with some of that stuff, but I feel like this respect thing that we're talking about kind of plays into society as a whole too. I think this is how people get so triggered by things. This is how there's so much division is it's like sometimes people don't want to respect the other person's journey.
yeah. Mm,
Then also, okay, let me say this. It makes me wonder if that comes from a root of maybe not trusting your own journey.
mm, yeah.
Or not
Mm,
trusting anything outside of your own journey. Like, is God big enough to make different paths for people and still be who he is, even though it looks different for every individual? Or
mm,
is the only way the path that I'm on?
yeah. How big is your God?
Question.
This is a really interesting conversation. I don't know if this is where I thought it was going to go when we started
Oh, I
talking
didn't
about
either, but
respect.
this
It's
happens.
good. It does. That's the way we roll.
It does. Yeah, it makes me think of that song, How Great Is Our God?
Mm.
This is very shallow of me, and I know this now, but I'm only just realizing it now. I always thought, like, how awesome, how great, how terrific is our God, right? Like, how great is he?
Right.
Except now I was just like, oh, but how great, like how broad,
Vast.
how big, how vast.
Mm.
See, it's a little thing sometimes. Sometimes I get a key command right. Sometimes I realize little nuanced things that everyone else probably knows that I just figure out.
But you figure it out when it's right.
But I figure it out. And I'm on my journey.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining today, guys. We'll see you again next time.
See ya. Thank you for sticking around. Listen for new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Find us on all social media platforms by searching for Market Mystics. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. Visit upperroomcd.com where you can find more information about the hosts, projects, and guests. Go deeper by booking a coaching appointment focused on redefining identity and wealth in your life. See you next time.